period, we could understand why leadership fails and why leadership shouldn't fail. And now I know better that people do not really need to live in cities. We can be in our communities and still achieve what we achieve in the cities. Digi, thank you, sir. It's been a wonderful experience for me. Dr. Oke, everybody, the lecturers, wow. It was a wow program. I must thank you very much, sir. But it was too cold. I even had to go to clinic one of the days and I was taken care of. But on the whole, thank you, sir. It was wonderful. The experience was beautiful.
You all agree with me that from the way the two speakers spoke, the experience is actually worth it. We would look forward to seeing more and more of you here for subsequent programs in the National Institute. Please let's put our hands together of the National Institute work team. Permit me to recognize his presence. You're welcome, sir. President, I want to use this opportunity to invite Colonel Philip Ebuk to please come forward for the presentation of the committee.
The DG sir, other senior management staff here present, my fellow participants of the leadership course on sustainable cities and communities. I am Colonel Philip Akpan Jackson Ebuk, a participant of this very important and interesting course. So I have the responsibility this morning to read the communique on behalf of the participants of the course. In the next 15 minutes or thereabout, I shall be undertaking that task. Communique issued by participants of Strategic Leadership Course 3 on Sustainable Cities and Communities, which held from 26th to 30th August 2024 at the National Institute for Policy and Strategic Studies, NIPS, here in Kuru. By way of introduction, Sustainable Development Goal 11 is one of the 17 Sustainable Development Goals that was set up by the United Nations in 2005, targeted at making cities inclusive, safe, resilient, and sustainable by the year 2030. The Sustainable Cities and Communities is one designed to address social, environmental, and economic impacts through urban planning and city management. With the fast growing rate of population, environmental, economic, and social challenges, and the difficulty in meeting transportation needs among others, the effort to tackle challenges of urbanization has remained a major task for leaders in Nigeria. It is important to state that we have less than 6 years to meet these basic needs without compromising the future, thus realizing the goals of sustainable communities and cities has become pertinent. While there is the need for deliberate action towards achieving the sustainable development of cities and communities in line with the goals and target of SDG 11, there is the need for leaders at the strategic level to accept the responsibility of driving the process. Consequently, this strategic leadership course on sustainable cities and communities is most relevant at this critical time. However, some challenges were identified that could affect the sustainable cities and communities. And some of these challenges include poor strategic communication, mass urban migration, waste management and other environmental issues, poor transport infrastructure, social inequalities, absence of environmental stewardship, and ineffective implementation of sustainable living practices, amongst others. Now, as part of efforts to mitigate these identified challenges, the focused leadership of this noble institution organized this strategic leadership course on sustainable communities and cities. The training provided the participants with the opportunity to be equipped with the necessary tools towards the attainment of the goal of sustainable cities and communities. Now, in achieving this objective, several topics were covered in the course of the training, and they include understanding sustainable development principles and framework, public policy formulation and implementation in sustainable communities and cities, sustainable cities and communities in Nigeria, analysis of policies and programs, leadership for sustainable development and communities and cities, understanding decision-making processes for sustainable communities and cities, strategic planning and analysis for sustainable communities and cities, and community engagement and empowerment for sustainable change. This topic brought about some derivatives by the participants, and in the course of the 4 days training, participants were able to understand the rudiments and importance of developing a robust monitoring and evaluation framework to regularly assess progress towards achieving sustainable cities and communities development. We're able to have a clear and better understanding of leadership and its place in driving sustainable development of cities and communities. Participants now understand the importance of diversity, equity, and inclusion in sustainable cities and communities' growth. We understand the importance of policy formulation, analysis, and implementation for sustainable communities and cities. Other derivatives from this course include the need for inclusivity in public formulation. The course brought out the need for a whole of society approach in tackling challenges associated with sustainable communities and cities. It also highlighted the need to leverage networking towards the attainment of sustainable communities and cities, as well as the need for capacity building towards the attainment of sustainable communities and cities. Furthermore, the need for grassroots participation in policy formulation was aptly brought out, while the importance of monitoring evaluation towards effective, successful policy implementation was well captured. The importance of strategic planning and analysis for sustainable cities and communities was also brought out, as well as the need for strategic communication in community engagement for social change. Now, towards the achievement of these sustainable cities and communities, participants made the following recommendations. A, government should partner and support community-based initiatives towards achieving sustainable cities and communities. B, expand security infrastructure to facilitate sustainable cities and communities. C, government and key players should encourage renewable energy investments. D, encourage education as it affects sustainable cities through the inclusion of programs on sustainable cities and communities in the education curriculum for our primary, secondary, and tertiary institutions, as well as training and the retraining of teachers, vice principals, principals, and other relevant stakeholders in the education sector on sustainable communities and cities. E, government should ensure the availability of basic infrastructure and social amenities in cities through opening of roads and installation of basic infrastructure, promotion of local content, establishment of sustainable empowerment programs. F, the Ministry of Communication, Ministry of Information, as well as the Ministry of Humanitarian Affairs and other relevant ministries, departments, and agencies should prioritize community engagement and sensitization through adequate and regular sensitization of citizens, especially on waste management and energy conservation. Sensitize everyone on the need to know that security is everyone's business. Sensitize the public to address and change behavioral patterns, as well as utilizing strategic communications in community engagement. G, the federal government, through the Ministry of Humanitarian Affairs, should prioritize effective and sincere distribution of palliative to alleviate economic hardship. H, achievement of effective policy and decision making. And to do this, policies are to be well formulated with a view to resolving problems that result in urbanization. It should also capture inclusion for project award and execution. Priority should be given to the most pressing projects, as well as the policies formulated should be people-centric. I, policy formulation, implementation, and monetary evaluation should be ensured. For this, the National Institute for Policy and Strategic Studies could be mandated to evaluate all major policies in Nigeria and possibly issue certificate of viability or no objection as a requirement for a policy to receive approval for implementation. And this institution should remind ministries, departments, and agencies on the need for periodic review of policies, as well as the importance of effective performance measurement and evaluation indices. The adoption of a standard timeline for the review of policies can be championed by this institution, as well as strengthening of enforcement mechanism to aid policy implementation. While the policy should also drive, the institute should also drive a systematic approach to data collection to ensure regular monitoring and evaluation. We also recommend an enforcement of sustainable energy practices, and we believe it can begin from here. We noted, for instance, on our way to the Such is Life 3 excursion, while going to the quarters, that virtually all the accommodation area had their security lights on, and in some cases, a building had 3 or 4. So if we are going to champion the case for energy conservation, we can make an effective policy beginning from here. And lastly, we want the institution to champion the drive for a whole of government approach towards the attainment of sustainable cities and communities. So these are the noble and humble submission of the participants of the Strategic Leadership course for Communities and Cities, course 3. Thank you very much for your attention.
Class President, that is Colonel Philip Ebuk. I think he deserves another round of applause. The DG, you'll agree with me that these participants owe to you. Please, let's put our hands together for ourselves. Thank you very much. We are coming to the next item, which is the presentation of certificates.
Align with the established protocol. Before I will call on the DG to come to the front to present the certificate to the participant. I want to inform the DG some of the a paragraph submitted by this participant on Such is Life 3, just to let you know that we have a very